has been the result of that petri dish where bad government grows, and it's called civic and biblical ignorance. Because we don't know truth, we fall for the lies. And so our nation is falling for the lies right now. We have a federal government completely out of control. My guess is every single person in this room can agree on one thing. The federal government's out of control. I doubt there's anybody in here that would say the federal government's too small. There's nobody in here that will say, I really need the federal government to solve this problem for me. No one in here thinks like that. We all know they're out of control. We all know they're only supposed to be doing 17 things according to the actual Constitution. They're doing 17 million things they should not be doing. We all agree on that. We all agree the president should not be able to, with a stroke of a pen, switch the debt from people who studied lesbian dance theory in college to you paying for it. We all know that shouldn't be done.
Yeah.
We all know that illegal aliens should not be able to be counted in our enumeration so that the sanctuary cities end up with more seats in Congress than they should have. And yet, President Trump was not able to fix that. He tried. The Supreme Court that he appointed 3 of the 9 slapped him down. And then Joe Biden gets into office and changes it on his very first day and gives the Democrats even more seats after the 2020. I don't even call it census. The Constitution does not use that word. It is an enumeration. All they should be doing is counting legal citizens in each home. Now that's a very simple amendment to the Constitution to clarify that illegal aliens should not be counted in the enumeration. A very simple amendment to the Constitution would clarify that illegal aliens should not be able to vote in elections in America. Everyone in this room agrees on that. What we apparently disagree on is how you get there. Everybody in here thinks the federal government is out of control and that we have a swamp in Washington, D.C. But if you think that we can drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. by electing someone president of the United States, you've forgotten the definition of insanity. We're not going to keep doing the same thing and get a different result. You will not drain the swamp from within the swamp. It's not going to happen. Now, I happen to agree with a few guys by the name of George Washington, George Mason, James Madison, Gouverneur Morris, Elbridge Gerry, a lot of folks like that thought that when the federal government gets out of control, the states have to put the federal government back in its box. You're not going to elect enough good congressmen, you're not going to put enough people on the Supreme Court, and you're never going to elect a president that will put the federal government back in their box. Those guys were smart enough on September 15, 1787, to get up and say, you know what? When a tyrant takes away power, never in history have they given it back. And our federal government will become tyrannical. They predicted it. And we, the states, have to be able to put them back in their box. And there is only one way to do that, folks. There is only one way to save the Constitution. And it's to use the method that George Washington certainly thought was a good idea, that George Mason thought was a good idea, that every single member of the Constitutional Convention thought was a good idea. It was unanimous. Why? Why would we think that we should not use the tool that they gave us? Why would we continue to let the federal government be out of control? Everything, please hear me on this, because we agree on what we want the end result to be. We disagree on strategy to get there. And I used to be against this because I was afraid of the runaway convention. I was afraid, I'm a God and guns guy. Charlton Heston did an ad for me, okay? Moses stumped for me. All right? I would never do anything that would hurt the Second Amendment. And so I used to be against it because I didn't understand how it worked. I didn't realize what the safety net was. There is no way that an amendment will be proposed at this convention and get ratified by 38 states that would hurt the Second Amendment. Zero chance of that happening. 29 states have already said you can carry your weapon without having to even go through a background check or ask the government for permission. You only need 13 to kill the bad amendment when it comes to the Second Amendment. All of the fears about what could happen, those things that you don't want to happen, are already happening in Washington, D.C. And the only way that we can stop them is for the states to stand up and say no. I beg you, study this issue, whether you change your vote or not. Study this issue. Call me. I'll go to dinner with you and talk about it till I'm blue in the face. It took me 2 years of studying this deeply, reading all the debates, looking at all the possibilities, studying every possible outcome before I finally switched and said, you know what? This is the method to save the Constitution. Same thing happened to David Barton. Same thing happened to Mark Levin. Virtually every conservative constitutional scholar in the country went through that same process and now says, This is the only way we're going to prevent our nation from falling apart. We have to restore federalism, which means we let all 50 states have their own personalities. California wants to be goofy and weird, let them be goofy and weird. But Texas should determine Texas' future. And the only way that's going to happen is restoring federalism and putting the federal government back into its box. And the only way that happens is Article 5. So I beg you to please reconsider this issue. Please study it. Take one of my Constitution classes. Call me. Let's debate it. Let's have civil discourse. Without civil discourse, we're headed to civil war. We are on the same team. Everyone in this room wants the same outcome for Texas. We want the same freedoms for our families. We want the federal government back in its box. And what we've been doing for the last 30, 40, 50 years to try to make that happen is not working. And it's not going to work in the future no matter who we elect. If we elect good people into a broken system, the system stays broken. We have to change it from the states. We have to restructure the process back to what the Founding Fathers envisioned. And we have the power to do it. Let's use it. You have the power to do it. Tell your legislators here in Texas that you want it done. Tell your friends around the country that you want it done. Let's put the federal government back in their box and restore our state sovereignty as it should be. Okay, that's the one issue I want to talk to you about. Please take a Constitution class. Get your kids to study these things. Watch Chasing American Legends, and you'll have a great time learning history. If you disagree with me on this issue, I still love you. You're still my fellow Texan, and eventually we're going to end up on the same side on this thing because we have to stop the federal government from continuing to try to tell us how to live our lives. God bless you guys.